Well, before I get to a clip here from MSNBC of Democratic Representative Maxwell Frost talking about a proposal, a bill actually he's introduced to create an Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And great idea, and all around we need more action, specifically by Republicans, for them to get on board with common sense solutions to gun violence, decreasing the carnage we experience in America. Before we get to that, though, we have seen yet another devastating mass shooting, and this is what is being responded to in the clip I'm about to show you here from the Lexington Herald Leader. A gunman opened fire in a downtown Louisville bank Monday morning, killing at least 5 people and hospitalizing 8 others, the Louisville Metro Police Department confirms. Few details have emerged by Monday afternoon about the shooter or their victims, but emotional Governor Andy Bashar did say one of the deceased as a very close friend during a news conference. While this is Kentucky's first mass shooting of 2023, it's the 146th mass shooting in the U.S. just this year. That's according to the Gun Violence Archive. 146 mass shootings just this year in America. And as I said in the last segment on today's show, it is a multifaceted approach to decrease gun violence to address this problem. But you can't ignore one of the primary components, which is the gun. That is how we are set so far apart from other countries when comparing developed countries, their gun violence, the reality of guns and the regulation. And there's 2 ways that are clear and present and undeniable. 2 ways that we are very different from other developed countries. The first is the amount and how unregulated our guns are. And the second is how much gun violence we have. So you can connect the dots there. And we don't have to be seeing this type of devastation on such a regular basis. Here is Democratic Representative Maxwell Frost talking about his proposal for an Office of Gun Violence Prevention.
We need people who are forward-thinking, progressive candidates and thinking about ways of how we're going to end gun violence at every level of government. I actually just introduced my first bill, which creates a federal office of gun violence prevention, which will help do just that. Work with municipal, city, state governments, and Congress to provide recommendations and give the data that we need to solve this problem holistically. But what we will refuse is politicians who go in front of cameras and say, oh, it's going to happen anyway. There's nothing we can do. If that's the energy you're bringing to this problem, you don't belong in the seat of power. You don't belong in a place where you represent the people, because every death is a policy failure.
Yeah. So while it would absolutely be something I'd support to set up an Office of Gun Violence Prevention, it also should be noted, while there is absolutely complexity to how we go about solving this, in another way, it's simple in terms of what the next step has to be. And the only way, reasonably, realistically, we're going to address and decrease gun violence in the United States is for the Republican Party to change their stance on this. That's just the reality. And so down the road, there are so many fascinating and complex conversations about how we go about generally addressing crime and gun violence, mass shootings, all that. But the next step has to be we implement common sense gun regulation. And what's blocking that? The Republican Party. Next moment from this interview.
I think we're going to continue to see that this youth voter turnout will continue to rise. We've seen the past 3 cycles have had wildly amazing youth voter turnout numbers, and we're not done yet. You know, in 2020, we had the highest youth voter turnout in the history of our country, and half of Gen Z can't even vote yet. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is focused on changing the voters. And you know there's something wrong with your policy party when your path to victory is changing the voters and gerrymandering our maps to hell. And that's what's going on right now. It's anti-democratic, it's not democracy, and it's not the freedom and liberty that the party tends to hold up, the Republican Party holds up as their banner. True patriotism is loving the people in the country. It's not just about the flag. It's about the people in the country. And it's something that this generation, Gen Z and young folks understand. And that's why we're going to continue to fight. We will vote, but we also will hit the streets, and we also will take care of one another. And I think that holistic interpretation of what a movement is part of the reason why Gen Z and young folks are going to really build political power quickly in this country. It's using every single tool in our toolbox.
So I really do like that line of true patriotism is loving the people in the country. It's not just about the flag, it's about the people in the country. And I think that highlights what we'll see from many within the Republican Party, this insistence on focusing on things that are much more symbolic than they are actually impacting people in their day-to-day life. And that is why, in large part, they distract with a lot of these what are referred to as culture war issues, things that are vague enough, abstract enough, and symbolic enough where you can get people riled up about it, but not actually be held to any standard. It's not a tangible promise that you can be held to. And his example of true patriotism being about the people and not about the flag, it's great to have the flag as a representation of our country and all of that. But when patriotism to you is just symbolic, it's just wearing the flag, it's just whatever it might be, the way you go about saying the Pledge of Allegiance and hand over heart and all of that, and all of it can be great and wonderful, but let's make sure that's not a replacement for what is actual patriotism, which is fighting for the improvement of the lives of people within the country. And David has recently talked about, someone I think wrote into the show or called into the show, and talked about how Republicans are able to kind of co-opt these terms, these positive terms, patriotism, and it is theirs. Or even the flag, an American flag being a Republican thing often, which is strange. It's all of our flag, but it definitely happens. The branding, the messaging within the Republican Party often is more effective, even if dishonest. And I think those on the left need to work harder to make sure we don't just allow the conversations to always be on their turf. Because no, I don't think it's patriotic to spend all your time focusing on your obsession with, your guns and flag shirt instead of focusing on protecting children in schools based on common sense solutions. And I don't think it's patriotic to allow so many people to be in poverty in this country and not getting enough in the proper food. And we could list off the racial inequality that we have, the rolling back of rights for women that we're seeing, and on it goes. That's not patriotic to me. If you really loved your country, you would love the people in it. And if you really loved your country and the people in it, then you would want to solve problems facing those people. Seems pretty clear to me, but obviously a lot of people don't buy into that, and it's all about the songs and the flags instead of the people. Much more after this.